Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Opinions expressed on the First Coast Connect Week in Review are those of our panelists and do not reflect the views of WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome to First Coast Connect. I'm Letitia Barriola in for Ann Schindler. It's Friday, which means it's time for our First Coast Weekend Review. Among our topics, ICE detentions prompt Duval schools to resort to emergency contacts. The so-called hologram has departed Jacksonville International Airport. DOGE's Duval audit challenges earlier claims about the scale of wasteful spending. And Florida begins enforcing English language requirement for drivers. To talk about all this and more, I'm joined by Robin Lumb, former Jacksonville City Council member. Good morning, Robin.
Good morning.
And Mike Mendenhall, City Hall reporter and associate editor at Jacksonville Today. Hi, Mike.
Good morning, Letitia.
And we have Riley Phillips with us this morning, reporter at First Coast News. Welcome.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
And Megan Malacote, education reporter at Jacksonville Today. Good morning, Megan.
Good morning.
Happy Friday to all. Thanks for being here today. We're going to start off with some comments made by a board member and the superintendent during a Duval County School Board meeting. This happened this past Tuesday. Megan, you were at this meeting, and it was pretty significant because it's the first time we've really heard the school district comment on ICE in the city and the impact it's had on the district. Tell us more.
Yeah, it was the most specific thing I've heard them say to date, I think. It started because during the public comment portion, a parent came to the mic and talked about how she had seen ICE presence in schools. And so then at the very end of the meeting, board member April Carney, during her time when she gets to talk about kind of whatever she wants to talk about, addressed that and kind of chastised the parents, said that she was scaring the public, and then kind of gave the rest of her time over to Superintendent Bernier and asked him to fill in the details about what's going on in the school district with ICE.
And we actually have a soundbite of Bernier making this comment. Let's play that and we'll talk more about it.
We have not had ICE agents reporting to our schools, removing students. There have been some cases where families have been arrested outside of the school, like outside of school right, at their workplace, and we've had to work to find children the appropriate care and individuals from their emergency contact plan. We've had to do that a couple of times this year.
And so, Megan, you heard this while he was saying this, and it was noted as significant. What did you make of his comment?
It creates a lot of questions, probably created more questions than it answered. It makes you wonder what happens to the kids, from that point, what happened to the parents if they were detained and removed. There's a lot of questions that linger.
And so, Mike, you've been covering this on the city angle. What stood out to you now that we're hearing from the superintendent of the school district now weigh in on ICE presence here?
I mean, it's another high-ranking public official that is being kind of pushed to comment on ICE presence in Jacksonville. We've talked a couple of times on this panel about comments that Mayor Deegan had made during a press conference after after her administration made the decision to put someone on administrative leave, their Hispanic outreach coordinator, after a social media video that went viral, kind of guiding folks who might be concerned about ICE raids, about how to handle interactions with immigration enforcement. That person has since been reinstated, but so it's just another instance of this nationwide story really coming to local bear here in Jacksonville.
I do find it interesting too that the board member decided to, I guess, give up some of her time and allow the superintendent to weigh in on this. Is it uncommon for a board member to do that?
I think so. It's actually the first time that I've seen that in a year and a half of covering this particular board. So yes, it was unusual. And it's important to note too that the parent afterwards has since said that she stands by what she said. So it makes you wonder what's really happening.
Yeah, it's almost a good thing that the parent came up and brought this new issue tonight to light, because we wouldn't be here talking about it now, right? So let's hear what Carney said in terms of scaring the community and sort of telling parents, hey, we need to have facts. We have that soundbite. Let's listen.
There's people that come to the podium and make claims that aren't true, and that is leading to scaring the community. There's federal and state law that our children are protected inside of school buildings. So I want to make that clear to everybody. Because we're talking about fear, that's inciting fear by saying that ICE is coming into our schools, and they are not. So please, please, please fact check before you come to the podium and say something like that. Because we want our students to know that when they walk in the building, they're in a safe space.
So that's the comment that she then asked the superintendent to clarify. Robin or Riley, what do you make of this sort of the parent, the board member, and the superintendent also sort of weighing in on this topic?
I mean, I think it's good to clarify, to fact check if you have people saying, or going off of social media posts. I think we've all seen over the last few weeks so many social media posts about ICE, the ICE presence here in Jacksonville. It does make people scared. I think it's also led to a push. Parents, DCPS parents, have also kind of banded together and try to get supplies or coordinate transportation for children too. So I think this was good to address, and the board should address if there are these concerns.
Yeah. And two, the parent never said that ICE is like coming into the schools and taking. She had said 40 children. She didn't specifically say that ICE is. That paints a picture that's different and terrifying to any parent. She said that 40 students are missing from Duval schools, and it could be the kind of thing where students are not wanting to come to school because parents are nervous about attendance. We've seen that in other areas of the country as well. So it's Carney has kind of pushed back on she pushed back on a comment that the parent didn't necessarily exactly say, but the parent also said that she has seen ICE near a school personally. So it's there's still, like I said, a lot of lingering questions.
So is DCPS sort of monitoring withdrawals? That's a question here. So we're hearing that local parents are getting detained. Emergency contacts are having to be made for the kids who are in school. Any idea if kids are they coming back to school? Are they being withdrawn from school? Do you know that?
It's a great question, but I don't know.
We don't know. Yeah. Well, now the question's out there. So as people listen to the conversation, that may even come up at another meeting. But I want to reset for a moment and say that, we're talking about ICE and Duval County schools, and the first comment from the superintendent. We're joined by Robin Lumb, Megan Malacote, Mike Mendenhall, Riley Phillips about this. If you want to join the conversation on air, give us a call, 904-549-2937. You can also go to firstcoastconnect.org, and you can find all the ways that you can connect with us. Well, I know this is a story we'll certainly be following as more parents ask the questions, and I don't know if there's much wrong, right, with asking the school board and the superintendent what's happening, because we got some kind of answer this week. All right, so we're going to move on to free speech lawsuits by Duval teachers, the very latest on that also unfolded throughout the week. The Florida Department of Education will pay Duval schools litigation and 2 free speech lawsuits brought by educators. So, Megan, this has kind of a long tail. So if you can set us up again for why is this significant? We're hearing the state is going to foot the bill, but take us back to the original start of the lawsuits.
Sure. It started in September with Charlie Kirk's murder. And both of these employees of the school board, one is a teacher and one is a paraprofessional, posted to their social media accounts things that other people then found offensive and reported them for. And Duval schools opened investigations. And in one case, in the teacher's case, Hope McMath's case, the state also has opened an investigation. And so it addresses that kind of lingering and common question of how much right to free speech do government employees have when it comes to social media. And both of these employees in this case feel like their rights were violated. And so they filed federal lawsuits in December. And we received records recently. We were able to report this week that in one of those suits, the school board, the 5 board members, the Department of Education, and the Education Commissioner are all named, and the same outside law firm in Tallahassee will be representing them, and the DOE is going to pay for all of it, which is relatively unusual.
It is. Robin, you want to weigh it? Have you been watching this unfold and seeing that the state now wants to sort of pay for it? What do you make of this?
Um, I've been following Hope McMath for a number of years. And if you hire Hope McMath as a teacher, you know you're getting somebody who's got a very progressive point of view. And you pretty much are going to know what she's going to be posting on social media. I'm a free speech absolutist. Unless she has done something that has violated her contract or the policies of the school board on things that you should or should not be commenting on social media, I think she has a very strong case. And don't forget, she's also sued Moms for Liberty,
Right.
claiming defamation. And I think that's going to be, it reminds me of a SLAP lawsuit, strategic lawsuit against public participation. And I think in Hope's case, she may discover that the court holds that she is a public figure. And so there would be a higher standard. She'd have to prove actual malice if she's going to prevail against Moms for Liberty. But it's I think ultimately she's in a strong position. I think that she has a right, even though I disagree with just about all of her views, she has a right to say what she wants to say when she's not in the classroom.
Thank you for that, Robin. And we actually have a call now from Chris in Arlington, and I understand she is the mom who was at the school board meeting who made the comments. So let's hear from Chris. Good morning, Chris. You're on the air.
Good morning. Yeah, I actually did want to respond back to that because I do know for a fact that there are over 40 children in Duval County that have either gone to a country they've never been to due to deportation, or they are no longer enrolled in schools because they are not going out of fear, right? So these are things that us in the community take, we hold very true to our values. When we say we're community leaders, we don't just say it. We actually hold our people very close. So the majority of us, parents, me, many other people, and I'm not speaking for anyone else, but I'm going to tell you straight up, we know what's going on in this city. We know our people. We have their phone numbers. We show up when they're afraid to go to school to pick up their kids, which has been happening quite a bit. We have a complete connection in this community with the moms protecting other moms. So what April Carney stood up there and said was completely false. Parents are terrified to bring their children to school because there's a good chance that they won't be there to pick them back up. Okay? So this is a real fear. And for April to sit there and try to debunk it or create more fear mongering about this, it's disgusting.
Chris,
and I think that should be addressed. So,
thank you for that. Thank you for calling in. And, you're saying that, for a fact about the 40 students. I think the reporters here we all want to know sort of where are you getting that information? What is your source for that?
Well, the source is other parents. We have a network in this community, especially people that may be documented legally but don't feel safe. This is not just people that are not documented. This is people that have been in this country for years, people that have green cards that may or may not be expired. That is not enough to get deported. We need to realize that. That's not a crime that warrants deportation. And I think people don't understand that they are going way, way further than the law actually allows, going and getting these parents. And even the superintendent said that they've had to go and find people's next of kin because their mother or father is deported. That is ridiculous. We are literally leaving our children to fend for themselves.
Chris, thank you so much for your point of view. I really appreciate you calling in and giving your perspective. We had it, but now we have it even more. So thank you so much. And I want to talk about, at least what I got from this is that there is real fear. She's representing fear of parents and moms and that sort of thing. Riley, are you just being out and reporting and covering this ongoing situation with ICE? Or are you also hearing that when you're talking to people about fear, in particular when it comes to the schools and children?
Oh, yeah. And I think we've seen that too. I know my colleague, Christina Burgess, has covered this topic extensively too. And when it relates to Duval County Public Schools, and like I said, parents, she spoke about this network of parents. It does seem like parents are kind of banding together with other parents to ensure that at least the kids won't be as impacted as they could be. But I mean, I would love to know what the school district's plan is when a parent is, taken into custody, and are the kids just sitting at school? I don't know if they've had to come up with a specific policy for this. I think that's more questions, like you
Right.
said. Yeah.
Right. The superintendent said that they were finding contacts from the children's emergency contact list, that you have to fill out when you enroll a child in school.
But sometimes that's another parent, right?
Right.
That's the dad or that's the mom or whatever.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I want to get back to the topic we were discussing around the state paying for Duval's litigation. And we talked about Hope, right, and the history there. And I'm just, I'm curious around like who typically foots the bill when it comes to this. Why is this significant? Is it politics? Is it a cultural war that the state is sort of making a statement here?
So I'm glad you asked that, because in July, the board actually changed its policies for how this works when you have a employee or board member sued, which is not in and of itself uncommon. It's fairly common for the board and board members and people in like public facing positions like that to be sued. But the change that they made in July says now that the school board is allowed, like I think they changed it from like it was a shall to may kind of situation, reimburse a board member after a successful defense for their lawsuit, which is different than the district will pay upfront, no matter whether you're successful in your defense or not. And so the fact then that the state is actually paying for the board member's defense in this case changes that, because otherwise my understanding of the new policy is that the board members would have paid out of pocket for their defense in this case. So it's interesting timing in that regard. And it's also, I guess I was expecting to see the OGC defend at least the district, probably.
The Office of
General Counsel for the city,
Yeah.
right? Because of the city's consolidated government structure.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lawyer from this rather large organization, and the experts that I've spoken to said that normally you would see them kind of dip into that. I think the person that I talked to called it a deep bench of litigators in both the state and the local levels, but neither one of them are using that. They're going to this outside firm that has ties to a couple different governors in the state Republican Party.
Robin, what do you make about this sort of growing role, it appears, of state government and local education decisions? Or do you see this as a growing role? Is this stand out to you as significant?
First of all, I don't understand why these school board members wouldn't have qualified immunity. When I was on city council, I got to cast my vote and in the way that I thought was the most appropriate. And as long as you're coloring inside the lines, you have qualified immunity. So I'm not exactly sure what the offense is, why they're suing her. I guess it's it's obviously in this case wrongful termination.
Megan can clear it up.
So she hasn't been terminated. She's
sitting in a windowless room someplace on the south side.
Right, and
Right.
so the district has cleared up its investigation and gave her a very low level kind of discipline that normally we would see her return to the classroom afterwards, but she's not been because the state investigation is still open. The reason she's all these board members are looking for a defense as well is because during the school board meeting in October, which was the first meeting following Charlie Kirk's murder, four of the board members wore Turning Point USA T-shirts on the dais, and then one of the board members, April Carney, read a letter. So the suit complaint says that she spent 6 minutes reading this letter that was very clearly disparaging to Hope McMath, and so that's, I think, what the complaint in the federal lawsuit papers says as to why they're specifically named. And then on that same day, they actually also voted to pay out a settlement to Thomas Caggiano, who was kind of on the other side ideologically, but also a teacher in trouble for his social media posts. And he had been removed and disciplined and all these things. And then the appeals court sided with him that he has the right of free speech, just like you said earlier, for his social media, whether or not you depend on, or which side you're on. And so McMath's lawyer has been very
It's John Phillips, right?
Yes, John Phillips. He's been quick to say that the pendulum of free speech swings both ways. And so if you're going to have to pay out to Thomas Caggiano for restricting his free speech, then McMath his argument should also have the same right to free speech.
All right, so we're going to move on to the Holodonna drama, the hologram video box in the Jacksonville International Airport. And so why this is significant is because it elicited a lot of debate when it arrived, a lot of criticism from state leaders, and now Mayor Donna Deegan's hologram at the Jacksonville International Airport is gone. Riley, you've covered this since the hologram arrived at the airport in 2024 with quite the stir. And we know that Governor Ron DeSantis and the chief financial officer, Blaise and Golia, they all said it's wasteful. Like, why is it there? Kind of fill us in now on why it's been removed. What led up to that?
Yeah, so the mayor's office said this week that it was removed because the agreement with the airport has expired. It was only supposed to be there temporarily, so now it's back in the custody of the city.
The timing, though, I think people are pointing to and want to know if this is in reaction to the DOGE report and they're just trying to get rid of it. But it doesn't seem, at least from the city side, they're saying no, that it was time to go.
Yep.
And apparently there's plans for it in other places in the city.
Yes, they are looking into what to do next with it. I think it was supposed to be something for the Public Works Department, maybe to help with permits and help people understand, how to fill out forms, things like that. So I think now that's their task, is to figure out what to do next with this.
And the city has said it's city-owned, now back on city property. We will use it in the future, possibly at the main library and other locations. And it added in this other part, which is it's unfair for the airport to be subjected to constant hyper-partisan attacks. Robin, what do you make of now the hologram being moved, and we're actually going to see it still in the city in different places?
I always thought it was kind of silly. I didn't know what specific purpose it served. Every mayor gets involved in trying to brand city government in their name. I remember Alvin Brown in 2012 suddenly decided that the Jacksonville Jazz Festival was Mayor Alvin Brown presents the Jacksonville Jazz Festival. Curry, all over the city's website, you would see his image when you first got to the city's homepage. There was Mayor Curry. They all do this. If they really wanted to do something that would benefit the citizens of Jacksonville or Jacksonville as a whole, probably video of why Jacksonville is a great place to live, and those, placed around the airport. But a hologram of Mayor Deegan, that just struck me as kind of silly and not necessary.
Thank you for that, Robin. And now we have a call from Tom from the West Side, works at the airport authority, he says, and can speak to the drama. Hey, Tom, you are live on air.
Yes, I work at the airport, and I've seen all the drama involving this holographic box there. The airport authority has worked hard to eliminate its impact on the public. The device was often off or muted, and even after the mayor responded to criticism by including Tony Vazzelli, the Roar, Jackson DeVille, and local landmarks, in addition to her message, the machine was subsequently moved to a place where there is no foot traffic from the main concourse to an area near door 2, which no one goes out of. This has just really squandered the city's investment in this machine, and it's been really petty. I mean, I understand the mayor is controversial, but this going after this box was ridiculous.
Thank you, Tom, for your call. I have another call from Steve from the Beaches. Steve, you are on air. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. I just wanted to make the comment that holograms, the holographic technology, is a statement and was a statement about Jacksonville's forward thinking in terms of communications. And luckily, Donna was the central point of that, but it was a welcoming to Jacksonville by something that is indicative of where we're going as a city as far as communication technology. And it was a statement that was definitely worthwhile.
Hey, thanks, Steve, for your comment. Mike, what do you make of this?
So, I mean, the Holodonna itself, it was about $66,000, and when the city brought out their statement about the temporary agreement with the airport, they said that it ended on February 1st. They said that agreement ended on February 1st. It just so happened to coincide with the release of the state's Florida DOGE report, which was also critical of the Holodonna and called it in the report, considered it waste. So, I mean, that kind of brings in, the question of the timing. If you go to airports around the country, it's not uncommon to see local officials, whether you hear them over the loudspeakers or photographical presentations of either a welcome message or an economic development push. And I think that that was the original stated intent of why to place this at the airport. But it was interesting because it did become a kind of a statement piece for state and local officials who kind of are in opposition to a lot of Mayor Deegan's proposals. There were press conferences that were in front of this Holodonna, showing it as waste, kind of mocking it. So it did kind of create this. It was a very visible talking point for a lot of folks that were critical of the way the mayor's office is handling spending.
Yes, I mean, you think about maybe in Atlanta and you're riding on the tram or inside the airport, and I think it's the mayor's voice who's actually telling you, "Welcome to Atlanta, and you're going to have this stop," or you'll see the actual print, "Welcome to Atlanta." The mayor welcomes you. It's not uncommon, but I will say the video box, I haven't seen that in my travels. It is a bit, and to the caller's point, that is a bit innovative that we're not doing an announcement. We're using a hologram, which, by the way, is it really a hologram? Do we want to talk about that? Because she's not like 3D, if you will. She's just sort of standing there, and it looks pretty real, but,
Depends on your Star Trek definition.
There you go. There you go.
I remember seeing holograms at the University of Florida Library close to 45 years ago. There was one just inside the main entrance. And so to me, a hologram is three-dimensional. It was pretty rudimentary at that time, but everything I see on television indicates that it was not a three-dimensional image, right? It was
a box that was a two-dimensional video image. It kind of had a 3D,
kind of like what you can do on Facebook as you manipulate photographs.
Yeah.
You get a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right.
It reminds me a bit too of I don't know if it kind of a throwback, but in 2008, CNN tried to beam their reporters into the studio via hologram when they were doing the 2008 presidential election. It's this kind of a gimmicky thing.
Gimmicky.
You do wonder if, it's a woman and a female mayor, a Democratic mayor, and you just wonder if some of it's just political, if this is just a reason to criticize the government as a whole. Okay, now we have another call. Jason in San Marco. Good morning, Jason. Thanks for calling in.
Always a pleasure to hear your show. Thanks for taking my call. I just would love for the state DOGE officers to circle back and revisit the appointment of Ben Sass by our wonderful governor. The irony is rich when you consider the millions and millions of dollars that were wasted with that one appointment. Thank you for taking my call.
So what do you make of that?
You mean the terminally ill Ben Sass? What, didn't he announce that he's terminally ill?
I believe he has a. Yeah, he did.
Yes,
yeah,
yes, he did.
I'd say it's, all the money they spend at the University of Florida, and if they spend several $1 million trying to find a new university president, I can hardly fault them for that.
Right. We have another call. Loving all the calls this morning. We're going to take Linda. Good morning, Linda in Mandarin.
Good morning. I understand that for some people this is a large focus. It's small. It sounds small. A small ball. All the issues we have going on and the projects that have been brought to the city, and they're always talking about economic development. And it's really surprising, not surprising, that everybody who's crying about this that I've heard of, now I missed somebody, seems like male snowflakes. Get a grip. Let them have their own portfolio of why they have a better vision for the city than Donna Deegan. Other than that, this makes us look small as a city. We're trying to be on the national showcase. Most cities have a welcome to our city a voice. We just had a hologram. Get over themselves. Thanks.
Linda, thank you for calling in. And hey, if you want to leave a comment on the week's news or call in and join the conversation, we do want to hear from you. The number is 904-549-2937. Okay, now we've been sort of tapping around this, DOGE report with the hologram. Let's just go ahead and dive into it. The city council auditor identifies only about half of the alleged waste, fraud, and abuse that state DOGE officials initially said they discovered. Well, they're saying, the numbers, the math ain't mathin', let's just say that. But let's just talk about this, the difference between the state and the local findings. What is the big deal here that the state has one number and local has another number? Mike.
So kind of taking it back a little bit, when Blaise Ngolia, the state CFO who's in charge of the state DOGE, came to Jacksonville, I believe it was in September, after their initial 2-day audit in August, he claimed that the city was wasting $199 million of taxpayer money. He did that without a lot of data to back up his claim, and he said, look, we're going to be releasing a report in a few months. It's going to show where we're finding this alleged waste. That report came out last week, and the Jacksonville City Council Auditor's Office did that analysis of it, and was only able to identify a portion of the numbers and figures that were in it. They were able to identify some of the budgetary numbers, say, yes, the city did appropriate this amount of money, but was not able to identify that top line $199 million that was being claimed. City council members on the DOGE committee, which just is there was only three of the members at this meeting. They said that, look, when we're looking at this report, we can identify somewhere around 90 to 95 million. Now, the term waste is a bit subjective. A lot of the points that were identified in this report were public service grants, or grants that were issued by the Cultural Council of Greater Jacksonville. How the police and fire pension fund is investing its money. They're really policy decisions, So I mean, the term waste, I think, is kind of in the eye of the beholder here. I think that's something that this report, it kind of, it made pretty clear. And the city council auditor, their job is very apolitical. Their job is really to look at the numbers themselves. They guide the city council through this annual budgetary process. It's really addition, subtraction. Where does the city council want to put its money? So that's I think the most important distinction to make in the analysis that they gave of the state DOGE report.
And you would
excuse me, but this is an exercise in just silliness. Every July, just after the council break, the finance committee begins deliberations on the following year's budget. And they go through it line by line by line. And you're telling me that in all these deliberations they've had, they haven't been able to identify this waste, the so-called waste. Jacksonville operates on the cheap. It always has. I'm not sure it's going to change any time in the future. And everything in that budget has a purpose. You're spending on libraries, on parks. A huge portion of it goes to first responders. And for them to claim at this late date that there's this vast amount of waste, show me. Give me your criteria. How do you evaluate that? Ngolia has been traveling around the state making these claims. I don't find them credible, and it's just more political gimmickry. I guess he's got his eye on the governor's mansion sometime in the future, and this is how he's going to promote himself.
Can I just add, the report actually went over about 13 different local governments, cities, municipalities, and they went through and they did multi-day on-site audits is what they were calling them. And the city council, the Jacksonville City Council auditors report, I mean, they really just focused on Jacksonville, of course, but the comment that kept kind of coming up over and over again in the report is like this, it lacks the context for us to verify, the percentages and the numbers that they're talking about. That's what really kind of was the overarching theme of that report.
I think a lot of what he was looking at too is the spending increase that goes beyond the rate of inflation.
Yes.
So, hearkening back again to my term on city council, I just served one term. I had enough. I left. We were dealing with an austerity budget of about $1 billion. So now spending is just over $2 billion, which exceeds the rate of inflation by about 50%. There are several explanations for how that came to be. So I'm getting the impression that Ingolio is focusing on that, the fact that it exceeds the rate of inflation.
And what I'm getting from this is that the auditor knows the numbers, and this is what the auditor does for a living and when it comes to the budget. And so if the auditor is coming out and saying, hey, we actually don't know where these numbers are coming from the state, then that's pretty credible, right? Riley, I want to talk about what areas, though, did the state report say the city of Jax is overspending? Because it did call out some specific areas it pointed to.
The big ones, overtime, excessive overtime, $500,000 worth of overtime. The public service grants to the Cultural Council, they're considering this as DEI spending. And then 2 capital improvement projects, which to Mike's point, there were a lot of questions the council auditor has. In this state report, they call out a $7.5 million sidewalk project, and no one seems to know which sidewalk project they're talking about. The council auditor believes it's the Art Museum Drive sidewalk project. The mayor's office last week, when I asked, they thought maybe it could be something connected to the Emerald Trail. So those were, I think, the biggest
Probably
areas.
the Park Street renovations as part of the Emerald Trail.
Well, and if it was and if it was the art sidewalk that the city council auditor assumed, part of the issue is that there was a lot more in the project scope to that than just a standard sidewalk. There were walls. There was a bridge replacement or a bridge construction, which would substantially increase the cost of a typical sidewalk. And the simple line in the city's capital improvement plan that just gave a basic description of it did not include that project scope. And then that was brought up as a possible issue that the DOGE team didn't do a deep dive into that particular number.
Yep.
And now we're going to close out last final minutes of this segment talking about something that's happening starting today. And that is that Florida drivers must now be English speakers under new licensing requirements by the Florida Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles. And why this is significant is because the test has always been offered in English and Spanish. Some of the other tests also had a couple other languages that people could take it in. That's no longer an option. And so let's talk about the agency saying that also there cannot be an interpreter there. So the person's going to have to know the English language pretty well. Riley, catch us up on how did we kind of get there here? I know there's a backstory with a major accident that happened. Tell us about that.
Yes, it was a wrong way U-turn on the interstate here in Florida where I believe 3 people were killed, and the driver was accused of not being able to read the signs in English. So I think that is, the impetus to the Florida Highways and Motor Vehicles changing this directive now.
Robin, what do you think about, one thing to note too, that there wasn't a lot of warning that this was coming down. I think the decision was maybe a week or so ago, and it's effective today. How will this change the test taking process and the people who are taking the test? How does it impact them?
People who are taking the test have to be proficient in English. Well, road signs, highway warning, hazard signs that you see that the DOT posts on interstate highways, they're all in English. If you can't read them, then you're in danger to other drivers.
There's also, though, this point that traffic signs typically prioritize universal symbols rather than words. There's a symbol, stop sign, that they're saying that there's not just words, that there are also symbols that are universally known that this means stop, this means go. What do you make of that?
I have a tree across the street from my house, a big, gigantic oak tree that's got a fairly low limb. And there are several times a year where trucks will approach it and suddenly realize that they're not going to clear that tree. And so if you posted a sign on the street that said, warning, low tree limb, no trucks over X amount of feet, you can't convey that message using symbols. Sometimes you've got to, and the warning signs that you see on the overhead displays on interstate highways, those are in English. You can't do that using symbols. So if you want to maintain safety on Florida highways, you need a people that are at least proficient in the English language. They don't have to be, obviously not native speakers, but people that can understand written English.
Why do you think this is suddenly a problem now? Like, I kind of want to get to okay, I hear you. You got to be able to read and understand the signs. But is this also signaling maybe a push to limit the amount of people in this country that English is not their first language, and taking away the right for them to be able to operate a vehicle legally? Is there some other policy or cultural sort of...
Nobody has a right to operate a vehicle. It's a privilege. And the state of Florida decides how that privilege is dispensed through its licensing. So the notion that people have a right to get behind the wheel of a car, that's just not correct.
Well, if they pass the test.
Yeah, and in order to pass this test, they have to be proficient in the English.
Why do we think this is an issue today?
I mean, to your point, Letitia, I mean, this could have that effect of, having fewer, fewer, folks that are of immigrants possibly from getting their license. I am curious though too. One thing that popped up in my head was that Jacksonville's a logistics hub, and we have a really large trucking industry, and particularly in distribution industry here in the city, And I'm curious to see if there'll be any type of economic impact, from limiting the limiting the pool of applicants that can actually pass these driving tests, particularly our long haul truckers, those kind of any career that needs that driver's license. I'm curious about that. And also too, I mean, we also, Florida's interstate systems have a lot of truck drivers that come through here that are not licensed in Florida. They're licensed in other states, and there's really not anything that the state law can do about that. So I'm curious to see, if it's going to have the impact on safety that they claim, because you're seeing Florida has a lot of drivers that come from out of state. So a lot of the folks that use our roadways are not Floridians.
Okay, we're going to go to a call to, actually, we're running out of a little bit of time here. I just want to say, though, the Poynter Institute reported that there is no evidence that drivers who take tests in foreign languages pose a higher risk on roadways. And only a handful of states are offering exams in English only: Oklahoma, South Dakota, and Wyoming, and now it's going to be Florida. So you wonder if it's not a national sort of thing that's happening, that states are taking this into consideration. Why Florida is. And you want anything to add as we close out, Megan? See you nodding your head.
No, not really. It's okay. I know we're running out of time.
Okay. Well, that is our panel for today. I want to thank you all for joining us. Robin Lumb, Mike Mendenhall, Riley Phillips, Megan Malacote, thank you all for being here. And up next, a gender inversion of a Broadway classic. We meet the cast of a local production of Lend Me a Soprano.
Terrell Hogan Law.
I'm Wayne Hogan. Accidents can happen when you least expect it. For decades, our attorneys have dug out the facts to help juries decide who's at fault.
More at TerrellHoganLaw.com. USF College of Public Health, committed to creating a world where health is accessible to all, communities thrive, and well-being is a priority. More at publichealth.usf.edu.
On the next Florida Roundup, the state's report on local government spending is out. The effort is supposed to focus on finding what it calls overspending, waste, fraud, and abuse. Critics say its conclusions are misleading and incomplete. So what do you know about how your tax dollars are spent in your community? Email us now, radio@thefloridaroundup.org. radio@thefloridaroundup.org. I'm Tom Hudson. Then join us Friday, noon until 1.
Taxi Driver, Martin Scorsese's masterpiece about loneliness, urban decay, and vigilantism, is 50 years old this month. On the next Fresh Air, we hear about the making of the film Scorsese with writer Paul Schrader and actors Harvey Keitel, Jodie Foster, Sybil Shepherd, and Albert Brooks. Join us.
Today at 1 on WJCT News 89.9.
President Trump says it's time for a softer touch on immigration. Are we seeing that in Minnesota? On the next Friday News Roundup, the latest as the administration says it's pulling back. Plus, a big win for Democrats as California gets the go-ahead on a new congressional map, and new Epstein files reveal the identities of some survivors. That's all next time on 1A.
Today starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Hey, welcome back. It's a local staging of a gender inversion of the Broadway classic Lend Me a Tenor. The first show of the cleverly named Lend Me a Soprano debuts exactly 1 week from today. And to tell us all about it, we have Janet Hill, the director of Lend Me a Soprano at the Amelia Community Theater. Good morning.
Good morning, Letitia.
We also have the 3 actors in the program. We have Anthony Rodriguez, actor playing Jerry. Hi, Anthony.
Hello.
Regina Torres, she's playing the really fascinating Elena Ferenzi.
Hi, how are you doing?
And Carlos Simide, a dear colleague of mine, also an actor playing Pasquale.
Buongiorno.
Bonjour. No, that's French. I don't know. Okay.
That was my last show.
Janet, good morning. You are the director of this a play. What is this all about? What's the show all about?
Well, it is definitely a comedy, and it is about really a young woman who finds the potential within her in the midst of absolute chaos. So when you're coming to the theater, what you will see is the Cleveland Grand Opera Company that is staging a performance, a one-night only performance with the great Elena Ferenzi, world-renowned soprano, which is ironic because she's a mezzo soprano. And things just go horribly wrong. So what we find is that Joe really needs to save the day. And we have mistaken identities. We have a little slapstick humor. And we certainly have the opportunity for our audiences to come away with laughter and with joy and with a sense of hope for better things in a chaotic environment.
Elena, tell us about some of the trouble she gets into.
Well, she's a little bit known for imbibing and having affairs with young men that she meets as she's traveling. And so the other actors in the play decide that they need to tame her, and they end up dragging her into a coma.
Carlos, are you dragging people into a coma? So you are the opera's manager's assistant. So I imagine.
Oh, no, I'm her husband who is naive to all of this.
So how are you two interacting during this? There's got to be a lot of moments between you two. That's pretty
At
funny.
very high levels of volume.
Lots of yelling.
As I discover, my wife has this extracurricular life.
Oh, I see. You discover about the drinking and the men.
Kind of,
Apparently.
sort of, yeah.
Okay, so that all happens on stage. And then for you, Anthony, what do you love most about your role and just the show in general?
What I love about the show is the fact that it's got all these powerful women, and my character is trying to enter into this new world. He's a lawyer, so he's very black and white, but he's very interested in opera and women, and he wants to have a love life that's exciting, but his current girlfriend isn't really doing it for him. But throughout the story, he realizes he has everything that he needs, and he sees the potential within her that really fulfills him and brings him to realize that I have everything. She is what I want. She
Aw.
is what I need.
So there's a bit of a love story happening within this as well.
Yes.
Which is why the weekend of Valentine's Day sounds like a great time for this to go live, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Who do you think should come to the show?
Adults.
Yes.
So date night,
It would
maybe.
make a wonderful Valentine's date night. Absolutely.
And I want to mention this gender inversion. So tell me the relationship between the other version of the show, which is something about a tenor.
Mhm.
What is that one? Lend
Well,
me a tenor?
Yes, the
Okay.
roles are changed so that the main characters here are the women. The two incredibly talented sopranos. I'm using my fingers. They're wonderful voices.
And so how was that playing or trying to interpret sort of a role that was made for a man and you're having to do the female version of that?
Well, we were very lucky because the playwright actually made a lot of accommodations to the plot in order to create a female version. But what I like about it is that there's a moment between Elena and Joe where we talk about the actual magical wonder of creation on stage. And part of what I do is also teaching voice to students that are both classical and musical theater. And I took some of the words that she said and I actually gave those to my students because there's a moment of creation that creates, I'm using creation a lot, but that where you become something else, something new. And as Janet was saying, it fills you with hope and wonder.
Thank you for that. Now I want to get the show details in. It's a themed opening night party with complimentary refreshments at 6:30 for ticket holders attending the February 13th performance. So it is the weekend of Valentine's Day, so the 13th and 14th, and then again for the next 2 weeks, it sounds. And then also you can go to Amelia Community Theater website to get your ticket information. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope it's a packed house for you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Letitia.
Okay, everyone, that's our program today. Thank you so much for listening. If you missed anything, you can find all of our past and current shows at firstcoastconnect.org. While you're there, you can sign up to get daily show news, including our breakdown of upcoming guests and topics delivered to your inbox every weekday. And join us Monday as we sit down with more news. I'm Letitia Barriola. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. Congaree & Penn, dedicated to agriculture and culinary endeavors, offering field-to-fork dining and outdoor experiences on over 300 acres. Sip, dine, explore. Information at congareeandpenn.com.